When I was younger, I never imagined that growing old would feel like this. They say aging is a gift, and maybe it is, but sometimes it doesn't feel that way. My name is Richard Miller, and I'm 72 years old. I've lived a full life, raised children, worked hard as a mechanic for almost 4 decades, and built a reputation in my small Midwestern town as the guy who could fix just about anything. But somewhere along the way, as the years slipped by, I started to believe that I was fading. Not just in strength, not just in health, but in identity. I stopped seeing myself as useful. It wasn't just the wrinkles or the slowing steps, though those were part of it. It was the silence. The house that once echoed with laughter now sat still. My wife, Linda, passed away 4 years ago, and since then, every room felt like a memory. I spent a lot of afternoons staring out of the window at the old oak tree in the yard, remembering the days we used to sit under it with iced tea, or watch the kids climb its branches. My son, Daniel, visits when he can, and my daughter, Emily, brings her family often. But when they leave, the silence rushes back in like a tide, swallowing the laughter, leaving me alone with my thoughts. The truth is, I was sinking into a kind of quiet despair. I'd look in the mirror and barely recognize the man staring back. My shoulders slumped, my hair gone gray, my once strong hands trembling slightly from arthritis. I didn't see Richard Miller, the man who once raced motorcycles, fixed engines with bare hands, and carried his children on his shoulders. I saw a shadow. And the worst part was, I started to believe that everyone else saw me that way too. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a Saturday afternoon in spring. The air smelled faintly of cut grass, and sunlight streamed through the window, making patterns on the living room floor. Emily had promised to stop by with her son, my grandson, Joshua. He's 7 years old, with bright eyes that always seem to be looking for adventure. I wasn't in the mood for company that day. In fact, I almost told Emily not to come. I was tired, aching, and honestly, embarrassed by the way I felt about myself. But I didn't want to disappoint her, or Joshua. So I stayed in my chair by the window, waiting. When they arrived, Emily bustled in with her usual energy. She set down a bag of groceries she had picked up for me, kissed me on the cheek, and said she'd be in the kitchen putting things away. Joshua, on the other hand, made a beeline for me. His little sneakers squeaked against the hardwood floor as he ran across the room and climbed onto my lap like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Hi, Grandpa," he said, wrapping his small arms around my neck. I smiled, though inside, part of me felt guilty. Guilty because I didn't feel like the kind of grandpa he deserved, the strong, playful, larger-than-life figure I thought a grandfather should be. I managed a quiet, "Hey there, buddy," and ruffled his hair. For a few minutes, he just sat with me, chattering about school, about his new favorite superhero, about the fort he was building in the backyard with sticks and an old blanket. I nodded along, listening, but my mind kept drifting. I wondered how long before he saw what I saw, an old man, worn out, past his prime. And then it happened. Joshua stopped talking, tilted his head, and looked straight at me. His eyes, so full of innocence and honesty, seemed to study my face. And then he said the words that pierced straight through my heart. "Grandpa, you're still you." I froze. For a moment, I thought I misheard him. But he repeated it, slower this time, like he wanted me to really hear it. "You're still you." My throat tightened, and I couldn't speak. Tears welled up in my eyes, blurring my vision. In that simple sentence, Joshua gave me back something I didn't even realize I had lost. He didn't see the wrinkles, the frailty, or the mistakes I carried like heavy stones in my chest. He saw me. His grandpa. The man who told him stories, who taught him how to throw a baseball, who made silly faces at the dinner table just to make him laugh. I pulled him closer, pressing my face against his small shoulder, and for the first time in years, I cried. Not out of sadness, but out of relief. Relief that maybe I wasn't fading after all. The rest of that afternoon felt different. Emily came into the living room and saw us sitting together, and though she didn't say anything, I think she noticed the change. I laughed more easily as Joshua showed me his drawings. I found myself telling him about the time his mom, when she was his age, tried to bake cookies all by herself and ended up using salt instead of sugar. He laughed so hard he nearly fell off the couch. And in that laughter, I realized something: Joshua didn't care about what I couldn't do anymore. He cared about who I was to him. That night, after they left, I sat back in my chair and thought about his words. "You're still you." I repeated them aloud, testing how they sounded in the empty room. And for the first time in years, the silence didn't feel so heavy. It felt peaceful. Because deep down, I knew he was right. I hadn't lost myself. I had just forgotten how to see myself the way the people who love me see me. Over the next weeks, I carried those words with me everywhere. When I struggled to get up the stairs, I whispered to myself, "You're still you." When I looked in the mirror and saw my gray hair, I smiled and said, "You're still you." When loneliness crept in at night, I remembered Joshua's face, his little voice, and I believed it. It didn't erase the pain of aging. It didn't bring back my youth or the things I could no longer do. But it gave me something better: perspective. Because we spend so much of our lives measuring ourselves by what we can accomplish, by how strong we are, how successful, how admired. But when those things fade, and they always do, we forget that our identity was never in those things. It was in who we are, and in the love we give. Joshua taught me that in just 5 words. And maybe that's why I felt compelled to share this story with you. Because I know I'm not the only one who has ever felt invisible, or less than, or forgotten. Maybe you've felt it too. Maybe you've looked at your reflection and thought, "Who am I anymore?" If that's you, then let me pass on the gift my grandson gave me: you're still you. No amount of years, no amount of loss, no mistake, no failure, no sickness, none of it can erase the truth of who you are. You are valuable, you are loved, and you matter more than you know. So the next time you hear that voice of doubt creeping in, remember the words of a 7-year-old boy, spoken with the kind of honesty only a child can give: "You're still you." And that will always be enough. Please like and subscribe my channel for more romantic videos.